Hey everyone. Today we are interviewing Faruk and Seda, parents of 5-year-old Bera, now 6 years old. We've been working with Bera and his family for the past year, dealing with autism spectrum disorder and all that it entails. I'm excited for you to see where Faruk and Seda was a year ago and where Bera was and where they are now. And so without further ado, here we go, everybody.
Bera was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was 3.5. He was constipated constantly, like he wouldn't, sometimes 3-4 days, he wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. And then he was congested all the time. He was like 3.5, he was 4 years old, he was snoring like crazy. When people hear like constipation, they're like, yeah, it's not the worst thing you could have. But it is horrible. If you're autistic, it has constipation. That brings a whole lot of problems, which is one of, he would have, let's say, stomach ache, he's sick, and he won't be able to tell you.
When we visit our general pediatrician about Bera's constipation, and we ask her, hey, why he is constipated? He's 5 years old. I mean, what's wrong? And she couldn't answer that, and she was just suggesting,
Miralax.
Just use Miralax. She has no answer for that.
There is a gut, brain, and behavioral connection when it comes to autism spectrum that no one is talking about. I'm going to love Faruk and Seda. Why don't the two of you introduce yourself to our audience?
My name is Faruk Baran. I am 37. I'm an engineer, and we live in Iowa. And we have 2 kids. One is 10, the other one is 6.
Yeah, hi. I'm Seda Baran. I am a healthcare architect, and I'm 34 years old. And yeah, we have 2 lovely kids.
So, okay, you're both highly educated, intelligent parents. And your problem when we met was you encountered some health issues with starting out with one of your children. Can we go through what were some of the health issues that you had encountered with Bera?
So Bera was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was 3.5, around that. And then, so we went through diagnosis and evaluation, all that. And he started ABA therapy here in Iowa. He still does, though. He was going full time, like 40 hours a week, pretty much, very intensive training and therapy. There was some improvements, but not a comprehensive, there wasn't there was a lot of things that wouldn't be addressed throughout, ABA. So he had health problems, he was constipated constantly, he wouldn't, sometimes 3-4 days, he wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom, 3-4 days. And then he was congested all the time. He was like 3.5, he was 4 years old, he was snoring like crazy. So, and then he wasn't eating well, and there was speech delay, there was cognitive issues due to autism and all that. So we were really looking for a solution.
With your child, one of your children at 5 years old, autism spectrum, lots of, I'm hearing neurological delay, developmental issues, as well as physical symptoms. What was the kind of help that you were able to find and access locally?
Nothing.
Nothing really. So the thing was, so we tried to research and educate ourselves. So we were looking at, ABA therapy is just a behavioral therapy. There must be, because there's a lot of neurological aspect of autism. Yep. I was always thinking there must be something to improve those symptoms as well. Right. And I was reading a lot, and I found it's very common, I guess. It's not mainstream, but it is readily available, that there is a significant connection between autism and gut health. Yeah. Right, autoimmune disorders and autism. There's a lot of connections, and we were even though we had a really nice primary care provider for our kids, but when we asked them about can we check their hormones, right, or can we look at something more magnesium levels or zinc levels or vitamin, anything besides vitamin D, they would be maybe not necessary. And then they would just brush us off all the time.
Maybe not necessary doesn't mean it's not necessary. It just meant they didn't know anything about it.
I agree. And they didn't think it was, anything that would help, basically, even though we were, very open about, looking into different aspects of it. And sometimes I would bring, like, we had every 6 months, like checkups, and then every year with the pediatrician, I would bring up things like, last time we had Bera and his, vitamin D levels were like 8 milligrams per deciliter, whatever. And then they would be like, "Are you in healthcare?" I'm like, "No, this is very, obvious." Yeah. So.
And I would like to add, when we visit our general pediatrician about Bera's constipation, and we ask her, "Hey, why he is constipated? He's 5 years old. I mean, what's wrong?" And she couldn't answer that, and she was just suggesting,
Miralax.
just use Miralax. Well, yeah, that's a temporary solution, but what's the main, root cause for that? She has no answer for that.
No training, right? No training, no tools to evaluate it, no alternative, anything, right? It's interesting to note that even being very educated parents as you, seeing some doctors, good doctors, and trying to have educated conversations with them, you actually knew more about these things than they did, even before you started working with me on this. Acknowledging like how little training conventional doctors really have around autism spectrum or any of these symptoms we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yep.
So where is he now? I mean, this is about a year later. I would love for you to share with the audience, like, where's Bera now? Where are some of these symptoms that we just talked about? What has happened with them?
When we first started, like our first meeting with you, you asked us 3 problems with Bera, and we said the first one was speech delay, and the second one's constipation, and the third one was focus. And I can say constipation, 100% gone, and his focus and speech delay, they all developed.
It's so much better.
Yes. I mean, he's still, we don't compare with his, same age kids. Definitely he's growing on his own pace, but we definitely see improvements, and we're so grateful about that.
So I remember from that question that your main focus was actually constipation. I don't think you even dared to hope that there was going to be any change on his focus or speech delay. And I just said, thank me later. I was like, you just want to get rid of the constipation. Are you sure that's all you want to do? I remember asking that a couple times, and it was almost like parents of kids with autism have received such inadequate and poor care that you almost want to like keep your expectations low, so you yourself don't get what do I call it? Disappointed. Keep the expectations low, so then you won't be disappointed. And I was surprised that it was just constipation that was the main focus, and I was like, all these areas can improve.
We were
like, okay.
I don't want people to think like we're, when people hear like constipation, they're like, yeah, it's not the worst thing you could have, but it is horrible. If you're autistic kid has constipation, that brings a whole lot of problems, which is one of, like, he would have, let's say, stomach ache. He would feel sick, and he won't be able to tell you, right? And then he wouldn't go to the bathroom for days after days. And then the worst nightmare that we had was he had fecal smearing. He would just paint everywhere.
That's the piece people don't talk about. And that is a neural behavioral issue. There is a gut, brain, and behavioral connection when it comes to autism spectrum that no one is talking about. And you feel very alone as a parent dealing with that. And so like you said, constipation isn't just constipation. It's a whole range of behaviors, dietary issues, relational issues that goes with that, impacts everybody in the whole family. So let's talk root causes. Okay. So why didn't you just take Miralax and call it good like all the other parents do? What did you learn with working with us over the past year? What was the underlying root causes of his behavioral, speech delay, focus, or constipation? What have you learned? What were the big game changers?
Even before we met you, it was like we were looking for so we knew that there must be like a holistic, there's like a complete solutions to these. but we didn't know where to start, who to trust. So that was the biggest gap, right? Every time when they offer, like, he's constipated, use a Miralax, I'm like, yeah, there must be a better solution to this, right? And then we met you, and then we went through, obviously, like, we start with data, right? We had to know where we're at, which we had to quantitative data. A lot of food mapping, blood panels, and stool testing. Like, it showed that Bera had a lot of food insensitivities and allergies. Which Seda has two. Well, actually, Seda has two siblings with diagnosed celiac, like full-blown celiac disease.
Hello.
Yeah, so I was almost certain that he would have a celiac or something close to celiac, which, again, it turned out that he had, wheat allergy, gluten allergy, gliadin allergy, and a bunch of others, and then eggs and milk and a bunch of others, right? So that's what we learned first. And then we learned, how to basically, like, substitute his diet. We learned, and then it was extremely quick that we get rid of his congestion, constipation. I would say it was like 2-3 months, and he was really healthy in, like, physical health.
And what's funny, we even got a appointment from ear, throat, and nose for his congestion, and it was like months ahead, but we already fixed that. When we got the appointment, why did we have this appointment?
yeah, they asked us, like,
we don't need it anymore.
We're like, yeah, we don't need it anymore.
And we only fixed it with nutrition.
Yep.
Diet,
basically.
That's it.
Diet.
No medication at all.
I know, but a lot of people, though, when they think diet changes, kid with autism, or, diet change means eat healthy, eat organic.
Not just
that.
No. For me, one of the big pieces that I work with is, number one, is he had huge digestive issues, and he ain't the only one. Apple didn't fall far from the tree. I mean, the two of you, other kids, other family history, lots of digestion problems that are genetic. Number one, you have to fix that problem. And number two, lots of food allergies in him. And there was already a family history of celiac that everyone just ignored, right? And then do we have to guess whether he's celiac or not? Or can we do actual data blood testing to figure out, does he have a problem with wheat? Is it gluten? Is it eggs? Or do we just guess and say he has autism? Let's do an elimination diet and eliminate 60% of the food in his diet. Try doing that with a kid with autism spectrum, with all these textural preferences and things. And some doctors or naturopath coming and just saying, just eliminate, here's the autism elimination diet 134. Do that one. And for me, that's why the data for this piece is really important when we're working with young children or poorly verbal children and parents trying to deal with all that. You need freaking data to say, this is absolutely yes, this is absolutely no, this is a maybe, and here's how that path looks. For me, that kind of clarity just is missing when it comes to diet for parents dealing with kids with autism.
I agree. Yep. Again, I was suspecting because of things I've read, researched, listened, a lot of books, podcasts, papers, all that. There was a strong connection between gluten, right? But I didn't know he had egg allergy, right? I didn't know he had, some other grain allergies, milk and a bunch of other stuff. It's we didn't know.
What do you think as far as, you mentioned focus and you mentioned verbal development? How do you know it's gotten a lot better? What is the difference that you're seeing?
Oh, it's
the communication gets better because we can understand him better. Before it was just struggle. What do you want?
He was basically he was using single words only, and he was just labeling things. And you could ask him, Bera, are you hungry? He wouldn't tell. He would tell you something completely irrelevant. He would be like, I want to go outside. He would be something completely irrelevant. And with the diet and then we started on supplements, starting to look into a lot closer, more detail. And then he started using more words, and then he started bringing words together, right? So he was starting to form sentences, and then his focus improved a lot. Now we can engage with him in a lot more clear manner. When we address him, he addresses back. It's not just echoing. It used to be we would just say something, he would just repeat. It was completely contextually irrelevant, but he would just repeat. Now you can communicate. You can talk to him.
What do you say to doctors that say that hormones don't matter in a 5-year-old? Why would you be bothering to test hormones in a 5-year-old? What's your answer to that objection from your doctors?
Well, I don't argue with doctors anymore, so that's one thing I just ignore. But I mean, the hormones affect like how we feel, and they affect your like, for instance, your blood sugar levels would get affected, and then those things are directly connected to your cognitive, I guess, sharpness. And since Bera has already have an autism spectrum and a bunch of like autoimmune issues, so those small variations would affect him a lot.
You two strike me, and the parents that we have worked with kids on the spectrum, you two strike me as very typical of parents who, you do not see dealing with this as a burden. You have both approached this as an opportunity, with almost childlike excitement and curiosity around this.
Faruk and I, we're problem solver. We consider ourselves if there's a problem, it's also coming from my job. There's a problem, there's some needs to meet. Okay, what can we do? How to fix that? How can we accomplish it? And same with Faruk. Say some problem to him, he's gonna fix it. I love him, how he does at our home too. So I think that encourages us to look more and more. How can we help him for his future? And what can I do? I would like to use all my knowledge, my research to give him a best life for him. I feel like it's my duty. It's definitely my duty to look for more.
I look at it as my privilege. It's not only our duty. When I am able to solve a problem for my child, I get the privilege of solving this with my child or for my child. I feel lucky. There's a reason I'm in this position, right? A purpose. So, question, in trying to solve Bera's problem over the last year, what has been the collateral impact on the rest of the family?
Yep. So, when we got Bera's results, firstly, blood results and food mapping, and it was obvious that he had genetic gluten intolerance. And then we were like, yeah, we have another one. Probably you would have a similar issue. And then Seda as well, she had some digestive problems, bloating, And then on top of that, our daughter, Rana, she would get sick pretty often. And then she would get a lot of a ear, nose, throat, strep, that type of stuff. And I would say 6 to 8 months before we started for Bera, she was hospitalized. She had an E. coli infection, and then it turned into an HUS. And then she was hospitalized for about a week. It was pretty severe. And then, it was obvious. Then we have to look at other members of the family. And then we looked at Rana. Actually, Rana's results were worse than Bera's. So she had a lot more food intolerances and hormones all over the place. Hers was really, really not good. Instead I am the healthy bunch of the family, so I don't really have much. But I had some hormone imbalances and things like that. Not necessarily a food or genetic issues, but I had other problems as well. So, and we figured out and started on a whole family journey.
And I like to add, at the end of Transform for Bera, you specifically ask, how is our health? And we consider ourselves healthy, really. And but when I mentioned about Rana's HUS, you were like, that's so alarming. You want to work with Rana because you suspicious her immune system was not good. I'm like, we didn't plan join as a family, but I am so glad you said that day and we joined the program. And then when we did all the food mapping and stuff, our mind blew away. Really, I have zero idea that I have those food intolerances a lot, and Rana had it. My immune system was sucks. But I'll tell you, when I got sick, we live in Midwest. It's cold in the winter, and I got sick all the time. And I thought that was normal. Everybody got sick, and Rana got sick. All other kids get sick too. But then during the program, we learned and we understood this was not normal at all. And this winter, like, I've been in the Midwest over 10 years, and for the first time, I never get sick. I can't believe that. This is incredible. And Rana, same way. We, keep the food out of our life that gives us inflammation, and we support our body with supplements and probiotics and all. I just can't believe.
Here's what I see. Like, when you say you look at Bera's problem and you guys get excited that it's a problem to solve, and the way you approach it is with curiosity and excitement, I see it the same way, meaning like when I was having that conversation with you and you were telling me she had E. coli and HUS, that is not a normal immune system. And you tied to it the history that she has a brother who's autism spectrum, means altered immune system, just so you know. So in my mind, I already see a connection that people aren't making, and also missed opportunity. Because here's the other piece. You said some of the results were worse than Bera's. And while that's true, depending on, the sex of the person, the age of the person, how it shows up is different, right? You can't just, first of all, getting the right data is like a big obstacle for a lot of parents. But here's the second piece. Even when you get the data, you can't look at the data by itself and say, oh, this means this person is really sick and this means that person is not really sick. No, and you actually have to take a look at Rana's data and be like, what is that like for an 11-year-old girl, right? Like, let me give you an example. Like if Rana was 11 versus if she was 14, her hormones would be looked at very differently, and her symptoms would be very different between those two ages. And so hormones are equally important, whether Bera's 5, Rana's 11, or Rana's 13. But at each age, the pattern is really important to understand because it's a different type of opportunity and it shows up differently in each person. And I love the fact that, Seda, you're like, we thought we were really healthy. A lot of people think they're really healthy until they have a stroke, right? Or until they have a heart attack, or until they have their major depressive episode, or until they hit menopause. It's almost like we're the frog in the boiling water, and it's been heating up around us so much that if for 10 years, every single winter in the Midwest, everybody in the family, in your family, is sick for 6 weeks, and that's your normal, I mean, how are you supposed to know that you're a frog and the water's boiling around you until somebody else looks at you and be like, I already know what's going on with this kid, and the rest of you are sitting in the same boiling water. There's something really wrong with this picture. I love being able to point that out, right? And be like, there are opportunities here. But I will tell you, not everyone, even if someone else points it out, want to notice it. Because while there's a strong desire to fix things for our children and to do things for them or to make them do things, it's not that often to also meet parents who are like, I want to do that for me. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to fix myself too, as an example and as a leader in my family. That's rare and that's admirable.
Yep.
You're like, that's why I married him. And he's like, that's why I married her. So another question, right? There is a dire need and a dire vacuum of this type of help for families dealing with autism spectrum. And you experienced that yourself. When I said, what kind of help did you get locally? And you were searching far and wide, bringing this to your providers, and you said basically nothing. So when you did find us, what were some of your, I guess, questions or objections or worries? What would have kept you from doing this, thinking back to you like 6-8 months ago?
Yeah, it's like it's been more than a year, I think now. But first of all, I speak for myself, but I was kind of discouraged because when I was talking to, so what we have in Iowa is we have a children's hospital and children's health services. It's one of the best in the nation, right? Technically, right? So one of the like a top children's hospitals of here. But I guess it wasn't considered mainstream, and it was considered maybe experimental. People didn't even think about giving us any, options or any alternative routes to figure things out. It was very like clear cut. If your kid has autism, you go to ABA therapy, right? Special education. And then if your kid is constipated, you get Miralax. If you have sleep problem, you take this medication. It's at no point in the conversation anybody mentioned anything about how's your diet. Nobody mentions anything about that at all. And then how's nutrition? Are you feeding yourself with junk, or you're actually eating what you're supposed to be eating? And then we knew there was something wrong, and we knew there was a solution, right? But I was discouraged. And then I was looking at locally, because like I didn't want to sign up to somebody, over another country or like 1,000 miles away. And actually I found somebody local here in Iowa, and then he pointed us to you, right? So and then when we met you, when we first had the discussion, again, like for us, like we don't know you. We had no idea who you were. And we don't know if it's going to be a bunch of, a long journey to nothing or success. Like we don't know, right? Because it's the same thing. It's like a path never been walked before, right? For us at least. And everybody in terms of like a mainstream, medical, and then they will tell you, yeah, that's not the best way, stick to what we know, and which is absolutely nothing, to be honest.
So what did you have to overcome in order to say yes to working with? Like, what was, I guess, it sounds to me like fear of unknown was the biggest, hardest part. Okay. Which is why it's really an interview like this is really important, because it helps other parents out there see what happens behind the scenes, right? Besides fear of the unknown, were there other aspects of working with us that felt scary or uncomfortable before you came in?
I think nothing scary.
Yeah, I don't think so. Even though we didn't know what we're getting into, we knew what an improvement would look like, right? Once we start talking to you, we understand, oh, this is something, this is somebody who can help us.
Because you have a fixable problem. That's what I said. You have a fixable problem.
Yes, and you are working with data, which I really like it, because you can't fix something you can't measure, right? And we heard food mapping, food intolerance test, and a lot of blood work, hormone tests, stool tests. Never heard about those, Oh, okay, let's try. That was exciting for me, and it was very eye-opening for us when we get the results also.
So question, there are hundreds of thousands of parents going through the same thing as you. What's your advice to them? Because they're watching this interview. What would be your best advice for them, knowing what you know now?
It is like you said, it's definitely an improvable problem. You can improve. Maybe you may not be able to fix it 100%, but you can improve your kids' quality of life significantly. That's at least a certainty. You can improve it significantly. And then second is the other option is just, drugging your kid, really. There's no other option. Either you can ignore it, or you can drug your kid, or you can actually try to fix it.
We put 5-6-year-old kids on ADHD medications for focus problems. We put them on antidepressants for smearing poop around. because that's a behavioral issue, right? We put kids into therapy because they have speech delay or expressive issues going on. Traditional talk therapy, it is, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what is available out there. Talk to parents who are saying, what is it like to work with Dr. Maggie and her team? It's an online program working with her and her medical team. What was the experience like working online with us?
It was way better than I thought it was going to be honest. So I was really looking for somebody locally, ease of access and all that. But I don't think there's any downsides. You are located far away from us, right? So you're on the other side of the country. We're in the middle of the country. So, but as far as the data and the lab work goes, like if we have ease of access to anything here, right? We can send you the data. And throughout the week, calls, the groups, the Q&A sessions, and then you have an extensive library of education material that we did go through first. Like at the beginning of the program, we had to go through a lot of things to get ourselves educated, and then when we get the data, even we had some sort of understanding, okay, this is what's going on, and let's discuss with Dr. Maggie and her staff and, let's see what's going on. It is definitely recommended by our family.
Do you think working online with our team, how does that compare to, quote unquote, trying to find local team or different doctors or try to develop team locally to work with? Do you think it's actually people like you said at first, it was way better than you thought it was going to be. A lot of people expect it to be bad or difficult. What do you think compared to trying to find local people in your local network, if it exists? What do you think is the ease of use of an online working with us online? How has that been for you the past year?
First of all, like I said, your basically, I'm going to call it a library. Your library is very extensive and great. So it was on our schedule. Like when we have availability, we just listen and we go through the documents and videos and all that. That's one thing. And the second part of it is, it's really difficult to find a whole team locally available to you. Like you have you are you, and then you have like a dietitian, you have a nutritionist, dietitian, and you have different people with different skill sets, and they're separated. So we have equal access to everybody, which is really great. People may we couldn't find it locally, and I think it would be very hard to find this whole comprehensive team local to everybody.
Well, you also came in on a time when we added also to our instructor and provider team, and we added Dr. Beatty to our team, and he is a neurophysiologist, geek naturopath from Canada, not even from the United States, from Canada, whose expertise is in autism work and not only looking at the data, but the brain hormones, but also he developed supplementation. There's just such a vast resource that you cannot get locally. And I love the fact that I can sit here and say, I'm going to pluck the best brain neurophysiologist from Canada and put him on our team. And he loves to work with kids and families with autism and make that available to you in Iowa. That's the best part to me. That's the part that I get really excited about, is to me, it's a limitless way to access resources that you don't have because of physical location as an obstacle. It doesn't have to be an obstacle.
Yes,
I agree.
Absolutely.
Also, not because people in our group, there are people in other countries as well, right? There's somebody in, let's say, not a lower 48. They could be in Costa Rica. They could be somewhere in Asia. They would be somewhere in Europe, but they would have the equal access to what you can provide, right?
It really is access without boundaries.
Yes.
Right. So we actually have a lot of clients that reach out and work with us from Canada, Australia, England, London, Portugal, different countries. Because I mean, for you, you're like, you know, I'm in the United States. I'm next to one of the best medical centers for children here. And even you were having problems accessing this. There are other countries where, you know, there is essentially no understanding and no care for children and families with kids on the spectrum. Right. So being able to access that online, and we're able to deliver test kits. We can go over results. Like we have all these resources that are international that exist in the online program, and we have the library. So for me, it's access without boundaries. And that's what parents and people need. Right.
Yeah.
I can't be limited just because within the closest 50 miles, there isn't this super special rare specialist that knows so much about something I really desperately need for my child's life. Right? That cannot and should not be an obstacle.
No.
Yes. No. Correct.
Okay. You mentioned families, friends, all that. I would love for you to say, like, what's your pitch to people when you tell people, like, oh my God, this is something you have to do? Like, what do you say to your family members when you tell them about what you do with us and what has been?
Yeah, I'm the one who's spreading the word about this. And when I talk with my friends, you know, they also got sick all the time, and their kids too, and they think this is so normal. I'm trying to wake them up. Hey, my friend, this is not normal. Please, when you go to your doctor, please check your vitamin D, B12, ferritin levels, and I really highly encourage them to do this food mapping test and to see it, because when I show them my high sensitive food, they couldn't believe it. And people need data. It might, at the beginning, they might not believe that. Like, how come garlic can affect you, make your body inflamed? Garlic is helpful. But for me, yes, I love it. I add it on my food, but I didn't know it gave me inflammation. So I'm staying away from that, and I feel better. But who knows that unless you have that data in front of you? So I'm encouraging my friends, my coworkers. I'm telling them, please do this. And yeah, many people ask your program too, and I'm telling them how you.
A lot of people asked us.
Yeah,
they saw the difference in the kids and us, and then they're like, you know, there's something different about you guys. So what is it? And then we tell them this is what's going on. And also it's like I usually tell them, you know, you can invest in your health before you get sick. Oh, yeah. That's one of the things, like younger people, let's say age of like under 40, people don't really, so the body is not broken down completely. So all the years of, mistakes and damage, it's not really cause any, like it's not surfaced yet. So everybody thinks, yeah, this is good, you know, but they usually try to do something when it's too late. So that's why I tell them you can invest your life, and the best thing you can do about your kids is like you can invest their health right now. You know, a lot of, like, for instance, Rana, she was 9 when we figured out all of this. A lot of people don't even figure it out. In your experience, like what's the average age they figure it out? 45, 47? Yeah. So she knew about these when she was 9.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. The earlier timing matters, meaning the early in the timeline you're able to identify and intervene in a problem, the easier, faster, cheaper it is to intervene, and the bigger the outcomes, meaning the bigger the younger. Like, interesting, for example, like if you deal with a speech delay in a 5-year-old versus a 55-year-old who's nonverbal, right? Like, doesn't it make sense to intervene in a 5-year-old when developmentally the brain cells and the synapses are all forming and they can form alternate pathways and all that, versus waiting for 55 years of more and more damaged pathways to then say, oh, now we have to deal with, you know, the nonverbal 55-year-old, right? So the sooner you intervene, the better it is. Timing does matter. I love that. And then final question, what do you think this has been worth for you and your family? What has been the value of this? Could you put a price on what this has been worth for you and your family?
I mean, it's really difficult to put a price in, you know, it's probably priceless because there is, I can't think of anything else that it would be more investment worthy than your health. Right. So, and that's one of the things that we could give to our kids, you know, at early as age of 5 and 9, they knew their health and body better than, like you said, like 47-year-olds. So I think no matter what the price is, you know, I guarantee it will be cheaper than if you try to fix this when you're 50
or when you're 20.
Yeah,
because we've seen somebody with Rana's profile who at 23 has full-blown POTS or dysautonomia or long haul or an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis. And I'd rather catch Rana at 9 and never have that ever happen. Not on your watch, not on my watch, period. Done.
yes,
Game over, right?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Bera is also a very good indicator of the program actually works for a fact. You know, like I am more or less healthy. So it's like I don't have any chronic issues. So when I eat healthy, it doesn't immediately show.
Yeah.
Right. But everybody that saw Bera, they're like, oh my God. He was nothing like this like 3 months ago, like 6 months ago, because he improved so much over the last year.
Yeah.
It's so immediately obvious that like there's definitely something going on with him, right? In a good sense. That's on its own is really enough, right? Mm-hmm. Because like you said, people think like, you know, like you find somebody and you're just trying, you know, you bought into this, you know, program or cult or whatever they want to call it, you know. But when we show Bera, it's like it's night and day.
Yeah, and we were also told that autism they're gonna outgrow it in time, and I really don't believe that, and we definitely ignore it. I mean, no, we reject that. We are working really hard on his diet, on his, you know, putting his levels on the good. I mean, supporting his levels and all. We're really working hard, and people think we don't do anything, and he's just outgrowing it. That's not true.
Well, and think about this. Who the heck out there has seen a kid with autism spectrum with the type and level of symptoms he has in 3 months' time have these noticeable results that people who don't even know anything about autism is looking at him from the outside and be like, what's going on? This kid is completely different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That just isn't the experience of anybody out there with autism or any of the doctors that deal with kids with autism. In 3 months, there's that dramatic of a noticeable change. That is not anybody's reality out there. This reality doesn't exist for parents, kids, or their doctors out there. So I love that you're saying seeing Bera, the difference between 3 months ago and then 3 months later is like a walking testimony of this just works.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And also, I don't know if we share this with you, but it's a win. I don't know, maybe Seda shared. We registered Bera to kindergarten next. So even his therapists at ABA, they're like, Bera is growing, improving a lot faster than we thought he was gonna.
Yeah, meeting his goals
Very quickly. They're like, maybe we should do like part-time ABA and part-time school now, right?
That's a win.
That's a huge win. And for me, I'm a parent of a kid on autism spectrum and another child who has autoimmune issues going on as well. So for me, like being able to share my own life experience, my own professional journey into functional medicine, and having had that kind of impact on my own children, and then now seeing that pay itself forward in other people and their kids has been the most rewarding thing in my career. So there's a reason for everything. So thank you for generously sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Maggie.
That was an incredible interview and share from a set of parents that I feel privileged to have the opportunity to have worked with. They are so curious, so open, and Seda said about Faruk that he is an incredible problem solver, and so is she as an architect. freaking love working with parents who are problem solvers, who are open, curious to learning and new ways of doing something and transformation. I love the fact that they went beyond the limits of, I got to find people locally. Because the truth of the matter is, even at one of the best children's center in the world, they got zero help. Thank you so much for spending this time. And if anyone that you know, or if this impacts you, autism spectrum, being a parent of a child with medical or chronic disease of any kind, whether that's you or someone you know, please feel free to comment below, reach out to us, share this video with anyone that you know, and so that they know that there's not only hope, but there are answers and results out there. Thank you very much. Click the link below and watch my free training. Learn this one simple concept and be ready to get life back on track.